What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the Calgary Flames as there is a lot of uncertainty right now up in Alberta, specifically for the Calgary Flames. And, you know, what's interesting about the Flames is we all know what happened last summer. It was a big year for the Flames, a big offseason last year in maybe a bad way. You look at some of the guys that pretty much were no longer a part of the team. Obviously, Matthew Tkachuk wanted to trade out down to Florida. He ends up being a member of the Panthers. Johnny Gaudreau leads the team in free agency. And then we saw some of the guys that came in that at the time looked like good moves there by Brad Treliving and the group there in Calgary. But this year it's going to be a completely new look for the Calgary Flames, a new general manager, a new head coach. You look at some of the guys that they brought in to replace Huberdeau and specifically Tkachuk and Gaudreau. They bring in Jonathan Huberdeau, who was a part of that package with Tkachuk going the other way. Nazem Kadri came in as a free agent. And they also brought in Mackenzie Weegar, as we all remember. That was a pretty big contract as a part of that Tkachuk trade as well. So when you look at the deal, that was a big deal for Brad Treliving and the Calgary Flames, and, you know, everything kind of fell apart from there. Now, there's a lot of questions about what the future of this team is, because now you've got two anchor contracts at this point, unless these guys turn around their careers in Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau. Both those numbers look very large right now, and not in a good way. Weegar is 29. Huberdeau just hit 30. That's definitely a little bit scary. Those are going to be tough contracts to move. Same thing for Kadri. He's already 32. So they've got some tough contracts to work with here. Now, there's even more questions, because as we get to next season, there's a couple of players that are really high-end players on this team that are going to be UFAs next summer. And with the uncertainty of this franchise, a new head coach, a new general manager, the direction of this team is definitely different than where it was the last time these guys were trying to negotiate in Calgary. So the first one is Michael Backlund. He's got a year left on his deal. He's making a little over $5 million per season. He's a 34-year-old player. He's been a huge part of the Calgary Flames franchise really since I've been watching hockey. So that would really be weird to A, see him in another jersey, or B, retiring and no longer on the Flames. But nonetheless, it sounds like this is likely his last season. There's been a lot of speculation he could be the next captain in Calgary. But, yeah, not really much information on that at this point. But that is something to keep an eye on going into next season. Elias Lindholm is the big one. Elias Lindholm, 28-year-old center, and his contract is a sweetheart deal. He was a big part of that package that the Calgary Flames made with the Carolina Hurricanes a couple of seasons ago. Obviously, Noah Hanifin and Elias Lindholm were the big pieces going to Calgary in that deal from the Hurricanes, and they are both a part of the franchise, at least at the moment. Elias Lindholm is a top six forward. He's a guy that's definitely going to be a point-producing forward for a team looking for help up front. Add more depth, can jump into your top six, and is going to be on a cheap contract, at least for this coming season. So even for the big contenders out there, if they could find a way to scrounge away $4.85 million, and even if Calgary takes some of that contract, whether that's 20%, 25%, maybe even 40% of that deal on retention for this season, they could get a really nice return for Elias Lindholm if, in fact, he doesn't want to come back to Calgary. And that's kind of where the cookie crumbles here, because if Elias Lindholm does not want to sign long-term in Calgary, chances are this is going to be the blow-up of the Calgary Flames' current group. I think that's kind of what everybody's waiting on. So once Elias Lindholm makes his decision, you're going to know the future of the Calgary Flames here for the next couple of years. So Elias Lindholm is definitely a big one. Michael Backlund as well, more of a leadership guy, but that's another guy to look at. Noah Hanifin is another one. 26-year-old defenseman. He's a left shot. He's got a modified no-trade clause, which is going to add a little bit more complexity to his situation in terms of a trade, but it can definitely be done. Noah Hanifin, I believe, has an 8-team no-trade list. And like I said, same thing as Elias Lindholm. He's on the final year of his deal. He's from the Northeast. He's from Boston, Massachusetts. So maybe there could be some kind of connection maybe back to the Northeast. There's been rumors that a couple of teams up there have been interested. So that would definitely be interesting. Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov are also names that could be thrown out there, but they're definitely lesser names compared to the big ones right now in Calgary, which are Elias Lindholm and Noah Hanifin, because Elias Lindholm is pretty much a top 6 center forward, and Noah Hanifin is still seen as a mobile top 4 defenseman at the National Hockey League level. So, the way I kind of look at both those guys, those are the key pieces here for the Calgary Flames over the next couple of years. You look at some of the young guys, they're going to start to go with some of the younger players on this team moving forward. You've got Cole Schwindt, Connor Zary, Ilya Nikayev, Matthias Emilio Pedersen. On the blue line, you have Jan Kuznetsov, Ilya Sayov, Jeremy Poirier, Dustin Wolf, who was the AHL's pretty much the goalie of the year. I think he actually won the MVP of the AHL last year. That's how good he was. So, as much as things maybe look a little bit bleak and disappointing right now for the Calgary Flames, and yeah, they're probably not going to be predicted to make the playoffs next year, this is a team that in the in the not too distant future, the Calgary Flames' future does look fairly bright. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, 2 years, but this is a team that within the next couple of years is going to be able to turn things around rather quickly. And depending on what they get for Lindholm and Hanifin, they could actually get a pretty good return. I do have a little bit of a concern considering the trade that they made with Tyler Toffoli with the New Jersey Devils. They did not do well in that deal. So I'm a little bit suspicious of Craig Conroy and his ability to make trades, because that was not a good first trade. Definitely not one that gives me a ton of confidence, but hey, listen, it is what it is. It's one trade, so we'll see if he's able to build off of that with the next deals with Hanifin and Lindholm. But like I said, if they end up re-signing, this talk goes away. We don't have to worry about it. But the fact they're in Calgary, they're up in Canada, right? The fact that Calgary really isn't looking like a team that's going to be a buyer at the deadline or even a playoff team, I think they'd like to find clarity as soon as possible in terms of the future of really two of their core players on this roster. So let me know what you guys think down below. What do you guys think of the Calgary Flames? Do you think they are preparing for a rebuild? Do you think they're preparing for just a quick retool here over the next 2 years and they'll be back in the playoffs? Or do you think they're going to try and sign these guys long term and try to immediately get back to the playoffs next year? Like I said, a lot of that depends on what happens here with Lindholm, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And of course, stay tuned to the channel, because I will let you know as soon as I find out any information. I will let you guys know as soon as I can. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you again next time. Peace.